Welcome back, everybody, to Day 3 here at the DreamHack Hearthstone Grand Prix. My name is Frodan. I'm joined once again by Nimsh and my fellow Boombot. Noxious. How's it going?
Pretty good. I mean, it's one of those things where every single time Nimsh is in the center, it just feels like...
It's just crazy, man.
I don't know.
At least we have good symmetry.
No, I can be like this.
Thank you, thank you.
Thanks a lot. I'll just
but please do not explode.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's actually funny because you two are the one matching in black as well. Did you guys decide to
no, I just
color coordinate today?
No.
Men in black?
It's funny because you guys not only have black, but you also have black undershirts, as if you guys are some kind of hit squad together as well. You guys can't really see it, but I think it's like really funny to me.
This is our town, scrub.
Yeah. Well, I guess he would be the Defias ring
I'd be like, yeah, beat it.
We are role-playing Nazgul, right?
That's perfect. All right, well, anyways, guys, we've been having a lot of fun here, as you can tell. At least we think we're funny. Hope you guys have been enjoying the stream and broadcast so far. We've had 2 days of Swiss as well as single elimination bracket, but it all comes down to this. The top 8 is guaranteed money and some points, but ultimately people want to have that championship. You get $8,000 in US dollars, and you get an ability to also put yourself really high in the rankings for the Summer Championship Tour for the prelims happening later this year. So let's find out who is going to be able to push through all the way and claim themselves a first 2016 DreamHack champion. We've had a bunch of names come through. Who's been some of the people that you've been paying attention to? Let's start with you, Nimsh.
Well, I was really rooting for Pavel, as I said a couple of days ago, and Pavel got eliminated by Vince. And Vince is another guy I was also looking forward to watching his games. We unfortunately haven't seen him on stream, but Vince is one of the upcoming French players who is playing really well. He qualified for PGL, and he was supposed to win PGL, but got kind of cheesed out by face hunters and face shamans there. But I'm really excited to see Vince play.
Yeah, I remember Vince won yesterday, and he tapped me. He's like, France has 2 players, and he was so passionate about it. And it was just cool because you guys who watch Twitch regularly might see the French channel, for example, Millennium streaming all the time through their French channel, and Noxious also has worked with them. Gamers Origin, very passionate. But they also seem to be slightly removed from the Western community, even though France is very much within Europe. They just have their really big insular community, but they're very good. You look at some of the top players, Mormats, Lowello, Defishu, and even guys like Maverick, who identifies with the French community. Yeah. They're so solid players. They're always topping the EU ladder rankings, one of the hardest regions out there. And so it's no surprise that France claims 2 of the top 8 spots. But at the same time, we don't know much about them. So it's really this mysterious. They had their own set of metagame tweaks, and I remember they brought really weird cards for many of the championships that they've attended. So I'm looking forward to see if they've got anything else differently that we're not expecting to see at the finals top 8 here.
Yeah, I mean, what I like about the community is they're kind of a microcosm, really. Like, all the French viewers know all the French players, but anybody else outside of that ring just knows no one. So that's actually pretty cool.
And France was always strong in card games historically, because in Magic and Warcraft, there were always really great players from France, and at one point there was even like a French world champion, and the second place was his teammate.
Oh, wow.
Okay, well that's
pretty good.
Yeah, that's really good. I mean, Elke is also from France, right? We haven't seen him perform too well in the event. Actually, he started off a really rough 0-2 and then probably lost hope.
Yeah, Elke told me that he just didn't feel very prepared. He was playing in a poker event like 3 days before he flew here.
Another card game.
He didn't have time to learn Standard very much, and so he kind of bombed. But I think that's kind of cool, you know. Elke in the past told me that he really admires Hearthstone because it is a very skillful game to his eyes as a poker player, which is cool to see that crossover. And it just kind of recognized that you can't just wing it these days when the card release happens, right? You have to definitely do your homework. So many players on social media are tweeting out, I don't really think I have a good grasp yet. I'm not going to stream. I'm not going to be like messing around anymore. I'm just going to practice hard until prelims, which, by the way, start next week. So it's
very
for spring season, we're really coming down to the wire here, and all these players are really taking it very seriously for their upcoming matches. So I want to really see something different here for the top 8. I know we've been seeing Terrence, who, by the way, will be in our first match up against Odemian, a member from France. But I also want to see if we can, if maybe the French community has a little bit different. For example, I think another Chinese member also went through the top 8. Maybe they also have something cool too. It's all up for grabs. And that's what makes it really fun, because the players know. We released all the deck lists to all the top 16 players, so they're familiar with each other's deck lists, but we don't know. So sometimes we might see something that surprises us too, which is part of the reason why everyone's watching. They want to see something cool really take everyone by storm.
Billy B. We got to root for the guy.
Billy B.
Billy B is just kind of carrying the torch of awesome names here. It's
Elemental.
I want to say like Terrence is he's been very impressive so far. Like every single time he's played a game that went very late into fatigue, nearly fatigue at least, he's been playing it pretty much perfectly. And it's sometimes one of the things you'll find when you see a name that you don't recognize is they'll tend to mess up those very long games because they have more opportunities to slip up in very very small ways. But that's not been the case with him.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I think a tournament like this really underlines that. You know, and I don't necessarily want to give too much credence to the naysayers, but a long time people always said on the forums and on social media that the established Hearthstone players, they're great. No one denies that Tice and Colento and Oskaka are great players. But they also say that there's also an abundance of players who are really good at Hearthstone, but they never get the chance to shine. Because once you get your name out there, it's almost certain that you get another invitation somewhere else. Yeah. And no one's refuting that. But someone, you know, there's always that one voice that say like, well, what about some of the other players who are really good, but yet are undiscovered? That's what the Hearthstone Grand Prix is all about, to give guys like Terrence, who technically seems just, you know, a little bit on the same level as some of these guys that we see all the time. Maybe in some people's opinions he's a cut below. Maybe he feels like he hasn't proven himself over time. But there's one thing for sure. At the Grand Prix, Terrence has been playing phenomenally. And this is what the tournament is all about, to show that he can also compete with the best.
Also, this is a very specific tournament in a way because we are after rotation with the Whispers of the Old Gods. So let's say DreamHack Winter last year was more about the metagame already stabilized. And right now, this is the time for the deck builders to shine, for the deck builder groups to shine. And I know like all those players, they have friends and they crafted together, they brewed together the decks. And they are here showing us those cool techs like Crazed Alchemist and those Leroy Conceal faceless versions of Miracle.
Earth Elemental.
I just put it out there. Billy B with the Earth Elemental yesterday. I could not believe it when I saw it at first. I was like, okay, so like it looked like an aggro deck, and then it turned into a mid-range as soon as we start seeing some of the removal, and then Earth Elemental out of nowhere.
Just like with
I haven't seen this in a decade, it feels, but it's good.
Adric the Pure as well, and Nizalf Paladin. I haven't seen it on ladder.
Yeah.
It's cool because I know everyone was like, Ejig will never really see play. I'd rather just play. Well, at the time, people compared him to Boom. Like, I'll just play Boom. Different story now that Standard is out. Let's take a look at the top 8 brackets. I know we've been talking about the players and who we can see coming up. We did mention that Terrence was able to beat Insanity yesterday and grab his ticket to the top 8. Odemian managed to beat Super JJ, who was my pick to maybe go all the way. We also have Just Saying, who was another player that people have been looking out, but Billy B is a story of the tournament for me. Just love his positivity. And then Ant, who is also a creative deck builder, was able to take out one of his longtime demons, 6-0. 6-0 always runs into Ant at tournaments, and Ant always says he always beats me, and he wins those tournaments that he goes on to win.
And defeating Oskaka just before beating 6-0 as well.
That's right. Yeah. Taking out a great list of players. And Ant also qualified for 2014 NA Championships back for BlizzCon.
A long time ago,
a long time ago. So people might be like, well, you know, it's another name that's being defeated by an unknown guy. Not really. Like, amongst the player circles, people are very familiar with Ant.
Yeah. So I just want to point out, like, the lineup that we have with you know, Peyton making it to the top is the only Chinese player that made it through from all the other ones that we had initially, and we saw him perform in the match that we saw him on stream with. His decks are very, very greedy. Like, they're all very slow control decks. Yeah. The slowest of all the people that we've seen play. Even Terrence has a lineup that's slightly faster than his. So it's really interesting to see that the greed of control decks is not getting punished as much as it used to.
Well, I mean, the meta has very polarizing things. Like, right now, it's either like super control heavy stuff, or you're playing things that kill control decks.
Yeah.
And you know, if you anticipate playing control, which a lot of players do, Peyton might have the edge over a guy like Vins. Although we haven't seen Vins on stream.
I want to see it.
Also, it's very important to mention that we have a ban. So one of the best face decks at the moment is the face Shaman. So if you just ban Shaman, you mostly face those combo control and mid-range decks, because the secondary aggro deck is what? The Zoo is probably the
I don't know, like, I guess you could be like Shocky and just let Shaman be and you know, roll all over it, but lose to Rogue, at least in your mind, or Freeze Mage. And there are a few mages in the event as well.
Yeah, that's right. And of course, we didn't mention that Jasmine was able to defeat Zalay. Zalay, you know, he had a chance to go really far through the Swiss qualifier portion, but he didn't really, win too much in the round 16. It just kind of happens that way. You can do really well in Swiss. You can be the first seed, and sometimes you just bomb out in the round 16 because you lose your first or second series of the tournament. But at that portion, you're not allowed to lose anymore. So it's a kind of unfortunate circumstance. This is not the first person to do it. But I was really looking forward to see if Zalay can go all the way too, because he also is lacking like a true premier win compared to how skilled he is.
Overall, a shout out to Team Archon. They had Zalay and Orange in top 16, and Amaz did pretty well himself. So a really good performance. Unfortunately, they're eliminated for now, and other teams have a chance to shine.
All right, so our first match of the day is Terrence versus Odemian, as you guys saw on the brackets. We actually kind of have the classes as well. I believe we even have the bands. Nimsh, why don't you go over it real quick?
Sure. So Terrence is playing Rogue, Warlock, Warrior, and Shaman, where Odemian is having Warlock, Warrior as well, Shaman, and Mage. So the difference is Mage and Rogue. The bans... so
it's like Terrence's Warrior was banned. I mean, he doesn't really have... Like you can see that some players, they have that ban the warrior strategy because they don't think they can beat it, especially when they have the mage, right? They're like, well, you know, I know rogue and shaman are problematic, but I mean, there's no unwinnable matchups outside of freeze mage versus the warrior. That wouldn't surprise me if that was Odemian's strategy.
And that warrior, if I remember correctly, was patron, right?
It is a patron warrior, yeah. Terrence was piloting it quite well. The shaman, I don't think we've seen from Terrence just yet. We've seen the shaman ban for the most part, and he was running with the rogue and the warlock as well as the warrior. So it'll be a new one for me. Yeah,
that's really exciting because there's so many shaman builds. Like all of the people are mostly watching the face shamans, and they think the face shaman is the most prominent. It's probably most popular. But we've seen Oskaka and Sixo bring this kind of like mid-range shaman with bloodlust
totems and primal fusion.
Absolutely, yes. So there's a lot of available builds that they can bring to this tournament.
Yeah, and it's cool because it's a variety of stuff. He's got a control deck. He's got a combo deck. And it seems like, at least on paper, he's got an aggro deck.
An aggro deck, yeah.
And that's like covering all the spectrums, at least for this tournament. We also see some other tournament archetypes over time, but for now, these are the three prominent ones. Taking a look at Odemian's lineup as well, you said the difference, of course, being that mage. The shaman being banned, I don't hate that. I mean, I think that's level 1 strategy. Just ban shaman and hopefully just deal with the rest. Just take out the strongest deck in the format. Odemian choosing a different strategy. He's bringing the mage, which has been a wild card. Freeze mage has, of course, been very effective against classes that flood the board like Zoo.
Even rogue nowadays.
Even rogue, you can counter it for sure. Especially that Reno Malygos freeze. I actually went to go talk to some of my teammates. You know, Eloise actually brought that deck
Interesting.
Too.
Okay, so it wasn't just Frozen that ended up playing like a bit of a weird deck.
It's the Reno freeze mage with Malygos just because it gives you extra burst and it actually wins the mirror too.
All the time.
What you do is you really think that if it's like level 3. You think other people might bring freeze mage to kill other stuff, to kill the rogues, and then you're like, well, I'm just going to win the freeze mage as well. It's sometimes a little bit too deep, but it does get you to top 16, and you know maybe Odemian has something similar to that. We'll see. I mean, it's not the most uncommon thing, but it's certainly rare. Either way, I think freeze mage is certainly underrated in the meta. Everyone's like, well, you know, it's we don't really see.
No scientist, so
no
it's probably weaker, but it's not really.
Gone too. Like, surely freeze mage has taken like a big hit. It's still very much alive, especially in the hands of a skilled player.
It's probably because the ladder metagame is a bit different than the tournament metagame, and there is so many warriors on ladder, and also you cannot really ban face shaman.
That's true. Yeah, you can actually.
And I mean, shaman's on ladder too, so it's a really problematic class.
It's a minefield to navigate, and you really can't get away with it. One of the things too about mage is like we saw the ban here that was done on the warrior by Odemian, trying to probably isolate the warrior to not have to face with mage. But the rogue there for Terrence is going to be a problem because he probably can't run away with a win against the mage the same way that maybe he'd like to with the warrior.
Yeah, that's a really good point too. Rogue has been one of these threats to sweep if Shaman's taken out of the format. Let's just say Shaman's deleted from Hearthstone altogether, which I don't think anyone's complaining right now. But if you take Shaman out, then Rogue all of a sudden doesn't have any decks that can legitimately keep pressuring it very early on. Sometimes we have the occasional face hunter, maybe we have the aggro paladin, but not many people are. Pirate Warrior. Phase Hunter still does exist to a certain degree, but I mean those decks are much less reliable these days, and Rogue as a result can continue their dominance over control decks. Just because you can't really answer Gadget Stand Auctioneer in many ways. You have to rely on a Ragnaros.
You got to go Shocky style. I mean, you can leave the Ragnaros over 5 turns by just flaming the board with 1/1s, or you can just play yours and hope that it hits right. I mean, it's just back to 50-50s late in the game.
Absolutely. And even if you go Equality Pyromancer, it's not really something that you're proud of. Two really important cards.
All right, so we're going to kick off the top 8 with TerrenceM versus Odemian. Get out there to hashtag ATX 16 as we kick off our quarterfinal number 1. Take it away, Nibs.
Thanks so much, Frodan. All right, so we are seeing Warlock versus Warlock.
Yeah, it looks like a Zoo from Odemian versus Terrence's Reno that we saw yesterday. This is an interesting matchup because depending on how the Zoo is built, it can either be highly aggressive, where it's just trying to rush you down, or try to curve a little bit slower towards the mid-range. But this opener with 3 1-drops, like Zoo nowadays is running what, like 11 1-drops and like 8 2-drops?
There's a lot of 1-drops, especially with Possessed Villager being a new card being introduced and working really well. And as you mentioned, there's a couple of builds. You can run Sea Giants, you can run Doom Guards, sometimes even Doom Guards and 1 Sea Giant, maybe Leader. But I think this matchup originally was really bad for the Zoo player, because if the Reno lock gets Reno early, it's able to just cancel all the try-harding you did in the early game.
That's right. I mean, one of the things too is that you have to keep in mind that we've lost, Anti-Healbot, Belcher, and there's no more Molten Giant surprise. So you can actually be aggressive, and the only thing that will stop you is usually that Reno. And there won't be a Molten Giant turn with the taunt, followed by a Reno, so then you have to go through an entire lineup of minions. In that case, you just kind of keep punching phase. There's nothing that's going to stop you, unless there's AoE coming up. And Doomsayer's made its way into pretty much every single deck nowadays, which explains a little bit why you see Crazed Alchemist more and more.
Yeah, and Doomsayer is actually great, because if you play it early, there's a chance that it will not get answered, so you're getting around 3 turns. Only you cancel the cards.
There it is. That's exactly the situation. There's a 50-50 on the juggler if he wants to take it, but that's really big commitment.
That's super risky, so...
Yeah, I think the life tap is safer.
Yeah, Odemian will have to make a decision here. Do you life tap and get another card and lose your board, or do you actually go for the 50-50? Because if you get for the if you hit the 50-50, you'll be in a good position overall.
Well, maybe, or maybe you get Demon Wrathed and you're still in a bad spot. So like the upside is, it's a 50-50 to keep your current board, but given that there's a Coin Hellfire or Demon Wrath possibility, maybe it's a bit too much to invest in.
Yeah, and definitely risky. Alright, so let's evaluate the hand for Terrence. He has that Twilight Drake, which looks pretty good, and some early game creatures. He doesn't have AoEs for now, but he had that Doomsayer that worked really well for him. So I think he's in a good spot.
Yeah, I kind of like the coin Twilight Drake here looked appealing just because there's no more Ironbeak Owls in the metagame, so very often it'll just be its full health minion. But usually, you'll be able with Dark Peddler to find a 1-drop that you can put on the board, and it's better to split into smaller minions against Zoo, so you can kill 2 things with your board as opposed to just one bigger one.
Absolutely. On the other hand, you do not expect Ironbeak Owl anymore.
Right, so you're pretty much, you're a lot safer.
Do you expect Crazed Alchemist, though?
Yeah, you might, but that's not too big of a deal against your Drake. So the Coil here is going to do pretty good work if he wants it to. He's going to hold on to the Mortal Coil here to eat up an Imp after the Imp Gang boss probably dies to the Drake, which is interesting.
Well, it makes sense. At this point, he just wants to stall, and playing big creatures is a good decision. Then keeping the coil, you might even want to keep the coin specifically for Thaurissan, maybe.
I mean,
like
you're curving
Sylvanas.
2 turn 6s. I guess you're right. You coin Thaurissan into Sylvanas, or the other way around. Oh, nice juggler there.
Yeah, that was a good hit. Even though the Imp Gang boss is going to die to the force. Oh, there's a taunt in the way. So.
Shadow Flame looks pretty sweet here, but you do need to find... Oh! Okay. You do need to find it first. So that's going to save him a little bit later. Probably not necessary just yet.
He might go for Sylvanas here, because Sylvanas with Shadow Flame is really juicy.
Yeah, I mean, you really don't expect to steal anything against this matchup, but the fact that you're able to put down a 6-drop against this board deck, you're both evenly matched, it seems, in the amount of minions you've got on board, except yours are much bulkier. You've also got the ability to keep them alive with Earthling Farseer.
Now with the absence of Ironbeak Owl from Zoo, Sylvanas is so awkward to deal with, because you just need to run your minions into it or just ignore it. And if you ignore it, you put more minions on board, but if you put more minions on board, you're open to AoE from the Reno lock.
Yeah, I feel like you can ignore one or two, like one of the 2 minions that they have on board right here. Like, you're happy to ignore the Twilight Drake, but then Sylvanas comes down, and suddenly you have to make a decision. Do I commit for the board play and probably lose it in the long run to AoE? Or am I just going to go very aggressive and hope they just don't have the Shadow Flame?
Yeah, so it seems like Odemian is going for that play. Just have as many minions as possible for Sylvanas not to steal anything good. and he needs to pressure. That's it. He just needs to ignore those minions.
I mean, there's a lot of damage on board, to be honest, right? Like, so if there's no Hellfire and there's no Shadow Flame, it is something you might consider. But there's a really good chance here that between attacking the Drake and attacking Sylvanas, a 1-1 will be stolen or a 2-1. That's not really too big of a problem.
Oh, I actually like this.
Yeah,
So he's
I
killing
love that.
he's killing Sylvanas to be able to control the steal.
Was there an attack missed?
I think so. Like
I think the Juggler did not hit.
yeah, he was about to attack with the Juggler, but didn't have enough time.
Shadow Flame! Pretty good. You can Shadow Flame Mortal Coil,
worst.
actually. Like, you can coil the M-Gang boss or coil the Defensive Argus afterwards. Pick one, but you can definitely use this Abusive Sergeant to use as a Shadow Flame buffer to wipe out the board. Man, this attack would have been so important. I think he was playing around Shadow Flame by trying to clear out the entire board.
Do you think he just wanted to clear the 2-1?
Oh yeah, I think he was headed there, from what we saw, and I think that definitely is because Shadow Flame was a possibility. And
Well,
here we
he can
go, Shadow Flame used.
Yeah, Shadow Flame to use and clear everything without using the coil this turn.
It even tanked the damage before it died.
Alright, so this looks super good for Terrence. Zoo has stopped, and there's only 23 life on Terrence, so he's super happy and healthy at the moment. Zoo is not pressuring him at all, so we'll have to tap every turn. So now Terrence has all the time he needs to get to the big cards.
Yeah, it's a very interesting spot because right now, like, all it comes down to for Odemian is finding Forbidden Ritual, finding maybe a good Dark Shower Councilman turn, but you really need to get there. This is actually a decent card because he can kill the Emperor Thorson if he wants. It's going to take a little bit of dedication, but he can do it. He's going to have to position this properly, so it would be Dark Iron Dwarf on the left and then Defensive Argus between the Void Walker and the Dark Iron just to make it 5 attack straight into the Emperor Thorson.
It's not a bad turn. He's not only killing the Thorson, he's getting a 5-5 on board, and Defender Vargas will be able to get +1 attack from the Wolf in the future turns. So he's still trying to pressure. Like, this is his only chance to be able to pressure and finish Terrence when Terrence has no cards to be able to defend himself. But Terrence has a lot of cards in his hand at the moment. We still don't know which version of Zoo Odemian is playing. Does he run Doomguards?
Well, I would expect there to be mostly Leroy. Like, I feel like very often nowadays they're synonymous because you're not running. You're just not running the cards that you're happy to discard, especially with Forbidden Ritual. You want to hold on to a lot of your cards in your hand that are situationally good, and discarding them just does not feel good anymore. You can't afford to throw them away as much as you used to, and that's largely because your minions aren't sticky anymore, right? You can't hope your Nerubian Egg and Haunted Creeper will carry you forward, so you have to extract maximum value out of every single card draw that you get.
Absolutely. Here, Siphon Soul, I think, is fine.
I like it.
Siphon Soul, the 5-5, you heal yourself. The question is, do you play Farseer afterwards to just lose it to Defender Vargas?
I might play Bran afterwards. The reasoning being that it will take the Defender Vargas down to 1, and then I can coil that and follow it up with something else, perhaps. But there's also, you know, the whole life tap.
Yeah,
and I'm probably going to be fine. And here we go. All right.
I think the life tap there was actually a good decision because you still have Bran and Farseer that will heal you for 6, so you want more cards definitely. And Forbidden Ritual doesn't really work with Gormok here.
Not here, but
Not yet.
It is a really dangerous card. So right now what Odemian is doing is he's playing around Hellfire and Demon Wrath, right? The leftover possible board clears. He's seen Shadow Flame. Twisting Nether is also a possibility. So you don't want to overextend too much. And if there's a Twisting Nether or a Hellfire or Demon Wrath, then you refill the board with the 1/1s.
Oh man, do you Twisting Nether here? I mean,
I
this
think-
board is quite big.
The alternative is to heal yourself for 6 with the Farseer and follow it up with... I'd probably start with Life Tap and then heal, and maybe get an even... But oh, the Kodo!
Ooh, interesting. Yeah, Kodo can kill the Wolf and reduce the damage even further.
Bran Kodo would kill the Wolf first and then the Argus, right? What? Would it work that way?
No, I'm not sure.
Because it would kill, but like sometimes
Yeah, it
the
kills the
animation
first
is
one.
not quite interrupted yet, and there's a great pickup there.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, actually. I wonder if that would work.
Yeah, we'd have to try one day. I've never actually tested that interaction.
Was this villager not doing much, but Darkshire Councilman, always nice to have.
Yeah, can you afford to play around AoE anymore at this point? You have to. You probably have to stay consistent.
Yeah, you probably have to play around AoE. Like, Forbidden Ritual is one of the best ways to come back when your board gets cleared, so you just need to keep it. You're still healthy at 19, and you are pushing damage. 14 damage already down to Terrence, but as usual, he has full hand of answers.
Yeah, it looks like Terrence's hand is able to defuse this
So
possible incoming bomb.
Coil the 4-1, and then you abusive the Kodo, kill the 2-5.
I mean, you can play it with Twisting Nether if you want, but you really don't have to yet, right? As you pointed out.
I think like basically because you can clear this board without, well, not fully clear, but because you can survive without using Twisting Nether, you shouldn't use Twisting Nether. Just keep it as your removal for Forbidden Ritual. It's still a card, and your opponent is holding this one card in his hand, so you might probably guess what it is.
Yeah, great pickup there, the Hellfire, another insurance card, so after the Twisting Nether is done doing what it wants, you have another backup plan. And here we'll see the trade as expected.
So Terrence is stabilizing. He has almost everything he needs. He even has a possible heal in form of Jaraxxus.
Great draw there, but again, either the brand Bronzebeard does not get dealt with in this spot, and we haven't seen yet definitive Arcus from Terrence, so Odemian will be worried, of course, about a wall of taunts coming down.
Yeah, and he's always worried about Reno Jackson.
Yeah, I mean, double heal. Pretty good. Gets 30 twice.
Wow, so this board is getting cleared easily by the Hellfire, and he still has the Twisting Nether, Faceless Manipulator.
You probably, I don't think you Hellfire. I think you might play Twisting, because you have no follow-up, right? Very often you'll try to weave in Hellfire as the first play if you have a 6-drop or something less to play right away.
I would be fine with Hellfire, actually.
Okay, so you'd keep Nether for later.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because Hellfire deals with the whole board here, and Twisting
And you keep
Nether...
Bran, I guess, yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. You keep Bran, so it's good, and Twisting Nether can deal with the kind of like a bigger board. And
Yeah.
I even like Big Hunter just to pressure. Warlock is at 9, so what can Warlock really do?
I think this is consistent. I mean, what I was going to say is, you know, you rarely play Hellfire unless you play something else, but we saw the BGH fall down, which is very consistent with the Hellfire play, so you're correct. I mean, it makes sense.
And how much damage there is? 6 plus 3, it's 9,
That's
so this will
GG.
be over, yeah?
Well, it is a good game. The Jaraxxus will take it. Taking down the opposing Gul'dan. So, going back to that Knife Juggler turn where the rope hit,
Yeah.
when the steal happened from Sylvanas, this may have been a really impactful one because then it cleared off the Imp, which was left over.
There was still the Ooze and the Shadow
Sure.
Flame, so there was still a way to use the Shadow Flame more or less effectively.
Yeah.
And but do you think he should have, like, even earlier, when there was the Doomsayer on board, should he go for, like, the 50-50?
I don't think you can rationally. I mean, maybe that's the play. I just feel like it's too early to go all in because, again, there's other AoE in the deck. It's not over, right? Like, they have Hellfire, they have Demon Wrath. If you go all in on the Doomsayer, then you dodged one board clear, but there's probably more waiting for you.
Yeah, but with the Demon Wrath, you had a Flame Imp, so possibly it stays on board. And, you know, this
And
matchup is
Argent
so
Squire
bad.
also had like a Divine
Yeah,
Shield.
right?
Okay,
So
okay, I
you
can
can
see
actually
it.
justify it in a
I
way.
could see it. I see. Don't hate it, for sure. And Terrence is going to go back to this Warlock. Odemian bringing out what looks to be some kind of a Tempo and or Patron Warrior. But it's definitely not a Control Warrior.
Yeah, it's definitely not Control Warrior. Arafi Weaponsmith is saying that it's probably Tempo Warrior with Malkorok, Ragnaros, Varian Rin.
Malkorok, oh god.
It's a good card, I like it.
Tell that to Kit Kats. Tell that to Kit Kats.
Kit Kats doesn't like it?
He likes it, insofar as it doesn't give him Curse Blade against Reynad.
Yeah.
You know, it's just one of those things. Decent draw there for Odemian. It is, you know, Terrence is not playing something of a fast deck, and there's very little else besides what Odemian has in his deck that is going to come out on the board to put pressure on the Warlock.
Oh man, there is Reno Jackson as well. So what do you think about this matchup overall? Who do you think has an edge? Just
Honestly, it's very, like, it depends on how quickly the Kor'kron Elites end up on the board and unanswered, because the damage piles up really quick from the Kor'kron itself and a lot of the other mid-sized minions like Fierce Monkey. You've got Acolyte of Pain that'll come out for draw, but Bloodhoof Brave, also kind of difficult to remove unless you're running Kodo, which is exactly what Terrence put the card in his deck for.
Is he even running Kor'kron Elites though?
I imagine so. It'd be hard to imagine this type of deck. You do have to have an aggressive streak, I think. Otherwise, you end up playing something of a bad zoo.
You have, you mostly have, well, Bloodhoof Brave can deal a lot of damage. You have the Monkey, you have Acolyte of Pain, you have Berserker to be able to deal a lot of damage.
Right.
And you have a great follow-up as well. So I haven't seen many Kor'kron. He might be running a one-off. But this is a good opening for him, definitely, because Monkey on 3, on 4, Bloodhoof Brave, and Malkorok already in his hand. So he needs to pressure and probably catch Terrence off guard with his Ragnaros hit, maybe, or
Yeah,
Gamash.
that can be very important, yeah.
Yeah.
What's interesting too is we saw the Shadow Bolt being used by Terrence. You know, there's no more Dark Bomb in the metagame, so the only way you're going to remove an Acolyte of Pain there is through something like the Shadow Bolt. But now there's a 4 health minion on the board and doesn't have it anymore, so he's going to have to rely on possibly just letting stuff live until he picks up the best Shadow Flame of his life and rolls with it.
He should not be worried for now because he has he's Reno Jackson, so he knows he can come back if the board gets scary. And if he basically he will lose some life in the beginning of the game, then he will clear the board with Shadow Flame, and then he will come back with Reno Jackson. The thing he has to worry about is what happens after that.
Shifter!
Shifter!
Okay, this will be a very impactful card in the matchup.
Hopefully.
There needs... The thing is, there's a Shadow Flame there, but right now it doesn't look to be like a crazy good target for it. But Shifter could be, you know, the Magma Rager of your dreams. It could be anything you need. A weapon removal against Warrior.
What's the best card you got from Shifter?
Reno.
Reno.
Yeah, you
Like,
get Reno Jackson, you just have
Reno
another
Jackson.
one, and you're good to go, right?
All right. I think my best was Ronin.
Okay, sure.
In this particular deck, yes, I was playing like Reno Jackson, Cthulhu deck, and I got Ronin somewhere in the mid game.
I think he got the tentacle thing, like
Yeah, the
3
2/4
mana,
taunt.
2/4 with taunt. What's the name of it? Withered Tentacle? I'm not sure.
No, it's
Squirming Tentacle.
possibly.
Yeah, it's Squirming.
It's a really awkward name.
A squirming little thing. Hey, Black Knight shows up just before the taunts are going to be coming out. So, as it turns out, the Bloodhoof Brave will find its match in the Black Knight.
Bloodhoof Brave is probably one of the best targets for Black Knight. Like when you play Black Knight and kill Bloodhoof Brave, you are always happy.
Against Warrior, at least, right? There's very little else right now they're running that you'd ever want to kill. He's on 10 cards right now, so he might have to play Shifter Xeris as a 2/4. Oh no! Oh no! That is awful. Poor little tentacle.
Squirming Tentacle.
I feel bad.
What can you do here? Whirlwind is interesting because not
Battle
only
Rage?
you can Battle Rage, and you also can connect with the Bloodhoof Brave to face because just the monkey kills the Squirming Tentacle after the Whirlwind, and Bloodhoof Brave and Rage can attack for 5.
So you Armor Smith Whirlwind, Battle Rage, and then attack with the monkey and hit face for 5.
I like it. I like it. It's a very good turn. You draw a lot of cards.
Compensate for the fact that you don't have life tap.
Getting some armor there as well. And this is a standard example where a deck like Temple Warrior playing versus this kind of control that has life tap needs to draw so many cards because every turn needs to be the quality turn. Every turn you need to pressure and be able to deal damage to your opponent. And Black Knight feels good and bad. Good for Terrence and bad for Odemian.
I really like this. Like, the thing is, Black Knight here, if it hadn't been there, what was the option, right? Like, there's really no good way for you to clean up the board. You have to wait, possibly use Reno Jackson very early to get it done. You probably even have to play Abusive Sergeant with the BGH to kill just a 5/5. That's a very heavy commitment, knowing there is a Grom in the deck. There is probably, or possibly at the very least, a Ragnaros. So BGH this early doesn't feel too good.
Absolutely. And right now also, this not only is a big tempo swing, there is a 4/5 waiting for you. Being Odemian, so this challenges your Frauding Berserker at the moment. Execute is a good choice to be able to protect your board.
Yeah, turn 7 is that's usually a very safe turn for you to develop something because it's just before Nether. There are no more turn 7 plays that are going to blow your board up unless there is something like Hellfire Coil, but it's Reno, so there's no 2 copies of that stuff. And if anything, the opponent does not want to AoE the board down with the Frauding on it that's going to survive.
So the best way to deal with this Berserker is silence, I believe, because there's no play with Shadow Flame and abusive buffing a minion.
Sure, that's reasonable. I mean, you're developing a board, you're fighting off against what the Control Warrior is trying to do, but the Warrior is trying to do, without necessarily committing too many resources. And here we go.
Malkarok!
Yeah, this could be big, or it could be small, or it could be, like, we don't know. Sword of Justice gives a BGH target. There could be... Sword of Justice, BGH is enabled. Oh no.
Wow.
Oh, that is bad.
That's so bad.
Oh no. Not like this.
His other minions will be actually buffed as well, but the fact that Malkarok is suddenly killable by BGH.
I mean, there might be a Nether, right? If everything slows down, I wouldn't be surprised to see
Nether here?
just a boring. I mean, when is the Warrior flooding? Maybe Varian Ren is a problem.
I like BGH, absolutely.
Hmm.
You not only kill the big guy, you also put a 4/2 on board.
I mean, you could also just go for Bran.
There is a couple
with abusive, and you just Shadow Flame the imp, but it's kind of mediocre. You're kind of losing your imp.
Well, if you decide to BGH, you have to.
Oh, is he gonna go for this?
For Bran, all right. Because the BGH also has a couple of targets in his deck. Like you have Varian, you have Ragnaros, you have Basabuk Grommash after the attack. So you will definitely find a target.
Yeah, poor Bran.
Shadow Flames.
Okay, so Sword of Justice will stay up. I mean, you don't want to override that weapon, but ultimately, do you play Grom in this spot? You haven't seen Siphon Soul yet.
I don't think you play
really
Grom.
problematic.
Grom is one of the few win conditions you have in this deck versus Warlock. You will play Grom when you're certain you're killing him or killing him next turn.
Okay.
And definitely after Reno Jackson. At the moment you're fighting for board, and you will probably need to go for one of the Arathi Weaponsmiths.
I know, and it'll buff it, I think, in the process, given that you play it and then Sword of Justice triggers before the override?
Yeah,
or
so...
is it the other way around?
Didn't... Okay, so it override the weapon and didn't get the buff.
Right, it's not a Blingtron, so...
And he's playing two of them. This is a lot of weapons. You have Malkorok, you have double Fire Wargs, you have double Arathi Weaponsmith.
Right. With the patch, I mean, with the standard coming in, the only other weapon Warriors are considering is Arcanite Reaper, but it's a very aggressive weapon. So it turns out, if you're playing for tempo very often, yes, it might kill something on turn 5, but the amount of damage it dishes out is usually so much that you feel very, very bad using it on minions. So you end up trying to just playing in aggressive decks with Upgrade, you know, the Blood Cell Cultist.
Yeah, with the Pirates.
And you're pushing phase. Oh, Reno comes out. Okay.
Reno Jackson
Reset.
Bring Terrence to full, and he's in a good shape, trying to get the combo parts, because he's playing Leader as well, right? PO Leader in this list? I'm just looking at Faceless.
Yeah, it is a combo deck with Faceless and Power Overwhelming Leroy. One of the things, too, is right now there looks to be a really decent Ravaging Ghoul turn if you want to pick it up. He's got the ability to override his weapon after using it, and then get a 4-card Battle Rage just before Varian Rin hits the board.
And that's probably what he has to do. The problem with Varian Rin sometimes is that if you draw all the big cards, you will not get that much value from him. But
yeah.
the least you can do is maybe just draw 3 cards still.
Yeah, it's still alright. Like, it's not too bad, because the thing is, the Warlock has been life tapping, so if anything, you're at least close to equal on fatigue than he is, and you really have to make sure you're on the board and dominating long before the game comes to a close, because the Warrior will eventually Twisting Nether you, and you'll be out of a board. And if you can bait that Twisting Nether before Varian Rin, it's also very important. So you need to get on there.
Absolutely. But this is an uphill battle for Odemian, and the Terrence is relaxed. He's at full health. He still has removal in his hand. He can draw more cards. He's in a good shape, and this is a really good Hellfire board if you want to go for it.
Yeah, very good play there, by the way, by Odemian, recognizing that Hellfire would have killed the Arathi Weaponsmith anyway, and there was really no point of pushing 3 damage to face. So
Actually,
preemptive trade.
You didn't even need to Hellfire this board. There's Kodo.
I would probably be inclined to kill the Acolyte and just attack with the Kodo. I mean, use the Kodo to kill the Armorsmith. Play it as slowly as possible. We've seen Terrence's deck is just, I think it's the most resourceful Reno lock that I've seen since the standard hits. I've seen a lot of lists try to be, they've been very cute, whereas this one seems to just have a ton of options and possible lines of play at every turn.
Yeah, I absolutely agree.
All right, 3 armor gained. Compensate for the Hellfire damage.
Did he attack with Reno?
He did. He did. That would have been a slight mistake.
Mistakes were made. No, that was a good call there. Because Twilight Drake is really powerful versus Warrior. It really demands an execute, which there is in Odemian's hand. But then
it's the last one.
It's the last execute, and you still have a lot of threats as Terrence. Like you have Jiraxes. So if any time of the game you feel safe at 15 health, and that time probably comes when after Torison, when you can actually play a 6/6 at the same time and then make it up.
Yeah. The thing is, right now, Cairn Bloodhoof is not a card that you see every single time, right? Like, it's come back, and I'm happy it came back, honestly. It was getting phased out, of course, by all the minions that had way too much health for it. Lotheb, Belcher, it just couldn't kill anything. And right now, the force behind Cairn is just the fact that it just has 2 bodies, and there's no way to start sticking minions anymore.
Yeah, it stays on board, and Silence is not that popular. We've seen this Spellbreaker from Terrence, but he's not playing Owls.
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't be... like, this is a weird spot for Terrence, because no matter what play he makes, they all feel rather bad. So you almost just have to... That's a very good draw for him here. He actually picks up a board if he wants to take.
Vendor.
No, he can protect his Doomsayer and also follow it up with Refreshment Vendor later.
Yeah, this play was available. Oh, Ragnaros comes here.
Okay. Shocky, lend me your strength.
What's the best play, though?
I mean, I don't know. It's really scary to even think about throwing Ragnaros on this.
I don't really like Ragnaros, but how desperate are you? You're running slowly out of threats, and Warlock is still healthy at 20.
I mean, you have Cairn, so you're at least getting Bane back. Right? So it's maybe not so bad that the Doomsayer goes off, because you do keep a 4-5 alive. So now it's a matter of seeing like what you do with your turn. So you could use the Fiery War Axe with Cairn to go through the that's a lot of damage you're giving to your Frothing, right? Because you're pushing for...
Yeah. Well, I think you just like play Fiery War Axe and go face with it. Just kill the taunt with your minions because they are going to die anyway. And Fiery War Axe to face, armor up.
Pushing 6 with the Frothing is worth a lot, right?
Okay.
Yeah. Oh my goodness!
Oh my God, he's going for it!
No way! Oh my God! And here we go. I mean, I guess if it hits 8 for face, you're still kind of okay with it because you do have a weapon on the back end.
Yeah, and Reno has already played.
Okay.
So Doomsayer is clearing this board. He doesn't have an activator for Grommash in his hand yet.
Doesn't matter. He's got 7 on board with 4 from Grommash, so there needs to be healing happening here if he ever wants to live. Lucky for him, though, he does have the heals. But that is a lot of pressure being put. I like Odemian's recognition there that he just has a 4-5 leftover with a weapon and Grom. That's a lethal looming over Terrence.
Yeah, and actually he can still pick up the activator. If he gets Blood to Icar or a second Whirlwind, he will be able to activate Grom and then slam face for 17.
Yeah, that's a lot of damage. I don't know how Terrence is going to approach this. Do you play the double healing cards with the Refreshment Vendor and Earthering Farseer, or do you opt for something like just Sylvanas and Vendor?
Well, Terrence is probably thinking, what's the worst case scenario? And the worst case scenario is definitely the 17 damage mark, right? So
yeah.
if you play Farseer and Refreshment Vendor,
You're still dead.
You're still in range.
You're still dead. Yeah, I guess you're right. Really
But
tricky spot to navigate. I like the mass heal or the Refreshment Vendor alone with a minion. Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, this is a really good call because he's still dead if he plays Farseer, and if there is no activator for Grom, which there isn't, Sylvanas is probably the best card to play there.
So Terrence does not see a snap play from Odemian, so there probably is no Grom and an activator, maybe one or the other. So he's safe for now. But I mean, right now what Terrence also has to do is close out the game. Right? So, it's fine to play removal, but at some point, being so low on health with Reno already out of your playables,
yeah, and
it's pretty rough.
This is all right. Like, you're making a call that you will get some cards from Varian Rin, and you still have weapons in your deck. You have activators for Grom, and you pull a threat, which is a 7/7. But there was a second line of play where he would just go face and ignore Sylvanas and try to draw into that activator. But this was a good call because we can see that activator was actually a couple of cards away.
Yeah, we can see here that, I mean, 2 executes were used, so Terrence has a good incentive to Faceless and then use Big Game Hunter. The only way Grom kills you at 13 health is if he gets, you know, Inner Rage, because it'll go up to 12 with Inner Rage alone, and you should be safe.
But that's not something that is being played in the 10 Warrior, so you probably can just make a safe assumption it's not there.
So he's not going to Faceless the 7/7, which I guess makes sense if you expect any type of more removal coming from the Warrior. So he's going to play it a bit slower, just using his deck as a source of damage.
Absolutely. So this is that time where Odemian can set up a weapon, deal damage, and still play a taunt maybe, possibly. But the problem is...
I think you have to push for face, yeah, with damage here.
Yeah, definitely. But then the problem is if there's Jaraxxus, you will only have 13 with Grommash, Enraged, and the weapon.
Sure. So if you go for, say, Arathi Weaponsmith, and you push face, and then you override it with the Fiery, and then play Bloodhoof, right? What that does is it puts the Warlock on 12, so he has to worry. Immediately you've got lethal if Grom comes out. And if he doesn't worry, and you somehow pick up the Grom, then he's dead within 2 turns, even with Jaraxxus.
I'm fine here with not overriding the weapon if you go for Arathi Weaponsmith, because weapon represents damage over time. So
sure.
So even this weapon from Arathi Weaponsmith is like 4 damage overall.
Well, the Ooze comes up, so that's another way to remove the first part of the weapon. But he probably was thinking about this with the Fiery War Axe. Do I want to really override my 2/2 weapon that could bait the Ooze to get a better one afterwards with the Fiery?
Oh man, this is so close because he cannot enrage Grom. Well, he can enrage Grom, but he cannot enrage Grom and play the weapon to finish the game. And
so if anything here... there's like he's so close to lethal that he probably is gonna just want to push, but with 12 damage facing you down, you have to answer the board in some way or another, right? Like, you might have to slam the 3-3, Blood to Ichor the Ooze, and then Whirlwind, use the weapon to kill the 3-2. There's like a lot of things you have to do before you can even consider going face.
Well, you have to
But
keep
you need to keep the Whirlwind for the Grom, or at least the Blood.
Or even Slam. Like, one of the activators definitely you need to keep, and he's so close and so far away at the same time.
It's a very tight spot. The worst thing is, you know, Jiraxis could kill you, Leroy could kill you, Power of Whelming could kill you. There's a lot of things that kill you right here if you don't deal with the board.
Yeah. All right, so what do? Do you want to draw cards at all? Is there any card that can save you? You cannot. You don't have Inner Rage in your deck, I suppose, so you're not.
I mean, there might be one. We've seen lists with people trying to just play the single copy, and here we go. He's going to try to push for that lethal. He's going to spawn a 2-2 here, so he will not use the last activator for Grom, but he'll put down as much damage and possible threat as possible. I just wonder, though, if Terrence even has a way to deal with this.
Actually, if he would not attack with a weapon, he had a chance to kill Jiraxis in a way, but...
it's over 2 turns.
Over 2 turns.
Yeah, that's the problem, is it's too slow, it feels. That's exactly the reason why he's probably not opting for this. Jiraxis comes out. GG.
Meanwhile, Terrence is having lethal, right? Is it not lethal yet?
Yeah, there's 16 on board right now with PO.
Yeah.
That's the game.
Yeah.
You know, Leroy could have done the job. Power of Whelming could have done the job. Odemian knew that there was definitely like a looming death coming his way, and that's the second game down for Odemian.
So the Tempo Warrior falls down, and I think people will have to rethink how they build this deck, because if you can never reach the 15 mark versus those Reno decks, you will need to add the Inner Rages.
The thing is, the deck is not fast enough to pressure you before you know, they need Reno early. But so usually you'll say, you know, if I'm playing Zoo and I'm just rushing the Reno log down, I'm thinking, well, if I don't run into Reno, then I'm good. But I'm pressuring them fast enough that if they don't have Reno early, then they're dead. In the case of Aggro Warrior, I mean Tempo Warrior, they're slow enough that the Warlock just feels safe life tapping for a good, you know, 8 turns, and then they're probably holding the Reno, and at that point it's just a matter of resetting.
Absolutely. Honestly, like the version I've seen from Cypher, I think he was playing Taskmasters instead of Armor Smiths. But when I said to 6-0, he frowned. But I'm not sure now, but it makes sense.
I mean, I agree with, honestly, I prefer the Armor Smith list if I'm facing off against a lot of aggression.
Yeah.
But I prefer the Cruel Taskmaster one as soon as I'm facing off a lot more control decks, where I know that giving them time basically lets them win.
Absolutely. And now we are going to see the Mage from Odemian. This is his last deck. He lost with the Warrior.
Oh man, that is really tough. At least the Warrior's banned for Terrence. I mean, the Rogue left for Terrence is also not too good against the Mage. So if the Mage can still win against the Warlock, which it definitely is capable of doing if it's running Burst, the Rogue is also going to have trouble, and the Shaman may also run into issues depending on how the Mage is built. So based on what, you know, the lineups that are coming, Odemian might be trusting in his Mage to sweep.
Absolutely, yeah. So he's still in. He still has a chance. You're not out till you're out, and we don't exactly know which Mage list this is. Frodan suggested this might be a Freeze Mage with Malygos for the extra burst, and he might need that extra burst to be able to go for the Reno lock.
That's a bit silly, though. Like, look at this here. We have the Loot Hoarders that are actually a threat enough that you have to coin out Sen'jin to answer them. In many cases, like, Freeze Mage just will not put down anything problematic for you. But here, it's very much the opposite. Forgotten Torch is amazing here, putting down a Roaring Torch in the deck. The option, of course, is see what you draw. Maybe you want to ping instead and keep the Loot Hoarder, you know, as a cycle.
Yeah, good sequencing. And this is something that Freeze Mage really wants and wanted in the past. You want to deal some damage with those early minions because it's free damage for you.
Yeah, it is. And Spellbreaker here can come down to negate the card draw, which at this point is a bigger problem for you than something like Doomsayer. So I really like this play here. You might be able to hit Acolyte of Pain later in the game, but definitely reasonable to just go for the silence on the card draw.
Already getting the torch. So the strategy here for Odemian is to gather enough burst to be able to kill Reno from 24.
Ideally, yeah, that's the point.
From whatever he has, right?
30 is fine too. You know, Blood Mage Thanos definitely does that because he hasn't used any Frost Bolts yet, any Ice Lances. All he needs is to accumulate all those Ice Lances, Frost Bolts. He's already got the Roaring Torch, an additional Fireball, hit the Emperor with all of that stuff, and then that's it for the Warlock.
Absolutely. So how the game normally goes, both players, they draw cards, and Mage tries to hit the Alexstrasza maybe, then Reno Jackson comes down, and then you just try to deal again some damage and be able to like burst your opponent.
Right. So this is an interesting spot because the Emperor Thorson is coming out at one of the worst possible times, because then Odemian has to use some of his burn, some of the burn that he cherishes for the win condition later on the minion that he sees right now, because he has to answer it. There's no way this can be left unanswered.
Absolutely. There's too many cards, and the card is too dangerous. So Fireball might make sense.
I think that's the play. Yeah, you probably. I think Fireball is like, unless you're planning to burn. Yeah, I was gonna say to burn the Emperor and then Flame Strike the entire board. The only line of play you've got is the Fireball. Is the most expendable piece of burn you've got in your hand.
I wonder how reliant Mage is on that Thorson from Reno, because like even though the cards get cheaper, those are the still same cards, and you know the cards, the certain spots, so you know Reno is coming. Doesn't matter if Reno is for 4 mana.
Yeah, or it is for more.
Yeah, doesn't matter if Twisting Nether is for 6, or it matters if the
combo
combos.
pieces. Yeah, I was gonna say combo pieces are a pretty big deal. We see here that we have like 2 pieces together that are being reduced, and also Abusive is there as well. An additional burst damage you can add on for 24 instead of 20. But I mean, there's been places where Faceless ends up being used in this matchup, at least, on more than just a combo.
Yeah.
Where you end up just copying like a value creature that put pressure on your opponent.
Thorson.
I mean, you Faceless Thorson, you just get Reno down. So you life tap, you Faceless Thorson, you get 2 reductions, and your Drake might actually live through next turn.
No, you definitely keep the combo. 24 is a lot of damage, and if you're able to just deal 6 to your opponent, then when the combo becomes available, you win the game.
Yeah.
If they are not careful enough. Pyroblast.
Okay, that is a lot of burn. Lucky for Terrence, he's got the Reno already, so unless he gets burned down in 1 turn, he should be okay.
So there's this Flame Strike dealing with Thorson, but it doesn't kill anything else.
Yeah. I mean, so the idea here, you know, we saw the Black Knight being played as a Yeti. Number 1, there's no target for it. Number 2, it's before turn 9, and turn 9 is where the Mage is able to Flame Strike and ping at the same time.
I was just waiting for Leroy for Leroy.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, whenever Leroy shows up, Abusive Sergeant goes on top of the Power Overwhelming with the Faceless, so the Leroy will hit for 24.
Yeah, this would be the kill. Like, Leroy from the top. When it comes.
Yeah, when it comes, it's over. And the thing is, based on the board that's right there, Terrence already is able to push in 8 damage, right, this turn, because the Flame Strike wasn't able to clean up as much as Odemian wanted. So this might be a very quick win or a very slow win, depending.
Depending when he draws it.
Exactly. It could take forever. So the reasoning here probably has to do with the possibility of Ice Barrier.
And he doesn't tap. This is so cautious. He's at 23 and already thinks like, hey, I cannot go down even further.
Yeah, I might die.
Yeah.
I might just die.
It's like both players are playing the standoff.
He might die. Look at this board. I mean, like the damage output that I see right now in Odemian's hand is enough, if there were no Reno, to take down Terrence from like over 2 turns.
He would love to get Thorson to be able to reduce all those cards.
Oh, absolutely.
And have even more burst. The thing with Thalnos is that he is losing that Thalnos, so this is some damage lost there.
He might be playing Malagos version. We've seen a few people try that. But now that you see the Thalnos as Terrence, you're feeling pretty good, because that means, all right, now the burn might exist and maybe in the deck, but it's not going to take me off guard by hitting me for 5 on the Nice Lands and 4 on the Frostbolt. It's going to be a lot slower and more paced than this. But Malagos could come in and upset his game plan.
Alright, so Odemian is counting cards, not to overdraw. He still needs that Thorson, and he still needs a bit more. Blizzard, though, should be alright this turn.
Yeah, I feel like you almost need to Blizzard just because of the amount of damage you're letting in, I guess, if you're not playing the... Oh, okay, this is another line of play that could be considered, but you could always use the Ice Block later, can't you? Or is it just better to develop it right away, before you go for the Alexstrasza?
So Frost Nova, Ice Block, and then you Alexstrasza next turn, and you hope there is no Reno. If there is Reno, you just adjust your game plan. Makes sense. Yeah. It's fine.
Liking this.
And even if you're at 20, now with Ice Block, you'll not die to the combo. Because if the Leroy Jackson... Leroy Jackson. It's like a combination. This deck should be called Leroy Jackson, right?
The deck is called Leroy Jackson Warlock.
Reno Jenkins? Leroy Jackson Warlock.
Leroy Jacklock. There we go.
Anyway, Leroy hitting for how many?
No, that wouldn't be 24 since the abusive's out, but
Yeah,
with
but
the
then, like-
Hellfire, you can still weave that extra damage in.
Absolutely.
So the problem as well with the heavy damage burst against Mage is when they've got the Ice Block, suddenly that doesn't work, right? You have to stagger the damage over multiple turns, unless you're putting them very low to where you can finish them off on the following turn. But there's not much reach in the Warlock deck, aside from Draxus hitting for 3. You know, there's no more Dark Bomb surprises.
Absolutely, and Leroy Jenkins is nowhere to be found.
Yeah.
So what do you do this turn? Like, you keep Reno definitely for Alexstrasza, even though Alexstrasza is not doing much. Do you no, you cannot Siphon Soul, or can you Siphon Soul the 1/1 to heal yourself to maybe
Well, I mean,
escape the range?
you found BGH, so the Alexstrasza is not an issue. The thing is, if there's an Archmage, like, I don't know, like, the deck lists are public, so Terrence absolutely knows what is in a Demon's
Yeah.
deck, right? So if there's no Archmage, maybe he'll feel confident enough to play the Siphon Soul on this. Like, you know, it's one of
Just
those
to
things
heal.
where I want 3 health, you know, it's a 6 mana Earthring Farseer in the spot. But very often, you know, you've seen the 2 Blizzards, the Flame Strike. You know the AoE in the player's list. Maybe this is just the best line of play. If there's no double Flame Strike, which we've seen a lot of people stray away from.
Is Malagas a possibility?
Of course.
It still is. Even though there is a Pyroblast, and mostly in the past when there was a Pyroblast in the deck, you haven't been playing Malagas.
Man, you know what's scary here is if you play Alex, you're like, okay, I could be setting up for a lethal over a few turns. Then, because Emperor was played, Reno could be 5 and BGH could be 5, giving your opponent the ability to not only heal himself, but kill your threat at the same time.
Yeah, but the problem is, that's
love
nice.
that
I love
play.
it. It's
Yep.
great. You force Reno, and then after Reno, you play Alex.
Yeah, this is actually probably the best way for him to win, is he's forcing a Reno that is a little bit worse against Alexstrasza.
Yeah, and Warlock doesn't have an Ice Block. He only has that Reno and Siphon Soul at the moment to heal, so you probably have to do it. Mage
At
with
this
this
point,
many cards.
Right. You might life tap first, of course, to find the card draw. But I don't see a way like other than a Reno, unless you had maybe Bran with Refreshment Vendor. You know, that's been seen. It's not too uncommon, but
All right, drink some cards with the coil. And Reno is going to come down. Do you do anything else? You just slam Reno and that's it?
this Earthring Farseer is rather good here. It really helps you. You know, if Alexstrasza comes out at all, then it gives you a little bit more reach.
Yeah, that's some extra heal. So you can heal for 6 overall with the Siphon Soul and Farseer at the same time.
Exactly, which is really what you want to be doing at this point, and I like that a lot. Is there ever an argument for a Faceless on the Alexstrasza? You know, before you Earthring Farseer?
The thing is, like, how
you
much
need to get
damage
to
is there
18?
incoming Nox? So we have Ice. The Ice Block, is Ice Block getting popped this turn? It might, but if Ice Block is getting popped, you can play your own Ice Block, and you have still 7 mana available. So you can Fireball Frostbolt Icelands for 7, which is 7 plus 6, 13.
Yeah.
And there is 2 plus 6, 8 remaining.
Yeah, we're going through the final motions here. We'll see whether or not Odemian is able to muster enough damage. But with the Ice Block, I feel like he is. He's got in hand right now a total of 12 just
I
between
think
the 2
he's
spells.
one off.
And he's
oh, no.
got...
Now he's good. Now he's good.
With the plus, you know, he had 7 damage from the Frostbolt, so he was still looking at 2 damage off. He had to ping over 2 turns, and he was still fine.
Yeah, he's good over
He
2
was
turns.
Right, didn't even need the Forgotten Torch, unless Refreshment Vendor.
I think he actually needed it.
start with?
After Siphon Soul.
I don't know, he had 21 with the pings from my understanding. Maybe the mana wasn't quite there, but...
Yeah, exactly. Like, I'm not sure if the mana was there. Yeah, he has it now, though. Refreshment Vendor, will it actually stop this slaughter?
I mean, that's a really tough spot. Terrence is just...
17, right? So there is 12 plus 7, 19.
Yeah,
He has the mana for it. Yep.
Can
No
you
Refreshment
pull it?
Vendor.
There's no Refreshment Vendor. Do you light? I mean, if you life tap board, you've effectively done. You've yielded yourself
Yeah.
for 2 with the Voodoo Doctor. A Dark Peddler Voodoo Doctor could like salvage the life tap, but it's not enough to even get him out of the lethal range.
Wow. That
How-
was a really good
how do you
decision to
do
Pyroblast
this?
face.
Yeah, it was the best actually. I think it's a rather common play. We just didn't spot it because we're scrubbed.
I didn't
We're
play
just
enough
bad.
Freeze Mage, but yeah.
It made a lot of sense. We've seen a lot. It happened a lot through the tournament. Oh no! Oh, it's too bad.
All right, and he was patient enough. Odemian is able to finish.
You have to show the top deck torch, right? You have to go double Roaring Torch.
Double torch.
Double Roaring Torch. You don't show the Frostbolt in Iceland. No, that mistake.
Oh, come on, it's fine, it's fine.
It's
And
not. The
And he gets
tilt-
his first win.
Sure, well done, but
Finally, the Reno Jackson Warlock comes down.
I think that's what Odemian was trying to do too. Like his lineup seems like the mage against Terrence's lines up really well against everything that he's got. So I'm not surprised.
So let's see what's left for Terrence then.
Shaman and Rogue.
Shaman and Rogue. You said Rogue can have trouble versus this mage?
A lot of trouble. Just a matter of, Rogue being kind of the same boat as Mage sometimes, where you have a limited amount of burst.
Yeah.
But the worst part is they have no healing right now. So unless they start curving out really, really quickly, and just curving out nicely 3, 4, 5, 6, and not getting answered with too much AoE or just really inefficient AoE, they're usually going to be in trouble. But he'll go with his Shaman here.
Yeah, and we are not sure which Shaman build this is.
Well, Argent Squire, it's, not indicative of anything, but I would say mid-range with Flame Tongues is usually where you see it.
If it not, it was not banned. Odemian just left it there in the lineup, so possibly it might be mid-range. But I would not be surprised if it's Face Shaman as well. Like Face Shaman is performing really well, and it can just kill Freeze Mage before Freeze Mage stabilizes and does anything.
I mean, the list with Flame Tongue Totem can be a bit on the aggressive side if you kind of gear them towards that, but they tend to be a tiny bit slower than just the pure burn. There's two schools of philosophy really. It's, do I use spells to kill them or do I use minions? Right? There's like two ways to go about it. And the Argent Squire fits in the more minion-centric one with a Flame Juggler, of course, which makes a lot of sense. So that's the one that Mage is, I want to say, best able to answer. Just because they have the tools. On the flip side, it also means they spend a lot of their mana just dealing with your board, as opposed to developing card draw, secrets, and anything else that they might want to play.
Absolutely. This might not be the best opening for Terrence as a Shaman, because you mostly want to have this Totem Golem and the Trog as well. But it's decent. You have a 1-drop, you have a 2-drop, you have Feral Spirit as a follow-up, and you have a Doomhammer with Rockbiter ready.
Yeah, absolutely. In hand right now, this is an excellent hand for Terrence. What's interesting too is that Odemian will be forced to use his removal very early on the minions as individual pings, which means at some point in the mid-game, his AoE, might just be, I don't want to say useless, but you've used your spot removal, and there might not be too many minions for you to hit with the AoE now that you've dealt with them all. And you can see here, you can't be stingy with your removal.
Absolutely. In the early game, you just have to throw everything you have to be able to stop the damage. And there is one card that can be indicative of what version of Shaman this is, Ancestral Knowledge. Mostly in the mid-range Shaman, people are playing Mana Tide Totem. Ancestral Knowledge is in the aggro versions, but it's not exclusive to aggro versions. You can still have a mid-range version with Ancestral Knowledge and maybe play Eternal Sentinel. Yeah,
the Eternal Sentinel, I think, is the card that allows you to justify Ancestral Knowledge in mid-range. I mean, it used to be that Lava Shock. I mean, Lava Shock just wasn't enough to justify in mid-range, at least. But now that you have, another option to remove the Overload, it's definitely one thing you can do. And here we go. We saw last turn, he decided to not play Ancestral Knowledge, to open up the mana for the Doomhammer, be able to just attack as soon as possible with it, weave in all the 16 damage it's got by turn 8. And lucky for Odemian, at least, he can stall a little bit using Frostbolt and Ice Lances, but this is really dangerous.
Yeah, it doesn't look good. It doesn't look good for Odemian. Terrence has so much burst, already having Doomhammer, no good way to stop the Doomhammer from doing the damage.
This could be like a 2-turn lethal right there. Oh my goodness, even more damage coming in for the next turn. So it looks like we're going to go all in, Limsh.
Yeah, absolutely. He will not have enough mana to play everything, but...
next turn, he'll take care of that. It's GG. On the next turn is a good game, unless the Ice Blocks get developed, but that'll buy him a tiny bit of time.
Yeah, and he will be losing mana as well to play Ice Block every turn to just survive one more turn.
Right, but the Ice Lance can freeze. So that might be a way to do it. If you freeze the face and there's no spell, you can perhaps survive. Frostbolt can be used, if you really want to, but he's got 2 more turns of face freezing. So if he can deny the spell kills, which he can't, he might be okay.
Yeah, but there are the spells. We know it, we see it, and this is the first Ice Block going down with the Lightning Bolt.
That should be the game, because Alex Straza could not possibly come down before turn 9. And we're 3 mana away and only 1 Ice Block away from death. So unless there's a really surprising tech to heal, I don't see this.
Yeah, we haven't seen it. So this is what happens when you do not ban Shaman.
Yeah, well, I mean, one of the things too is that there's a chance that the Shaman does not get an opening like this. Like the on-curve Doomhammer with the spells, lining up like this, they could have been minions, and that would have been a lot worse.
Well, at least there was no Trog and Totem Golem.
Yeah, you can always thank the Lord for that, I guess. It's just one of those things. Eternal Sentinel right there, as you can see, another card that Shaman added to his roster, and he can on Overload, I think, to play the Flamery the Faceless if he wants, but pop in the block.
Yeah, definitely.
Usually
the
better.
block.
Yeah, it's kind of hard to not do so. So there's another turn here with Frost Nova Icelands to face, so he can find Alexstrasza. He can still find her. He's got one more turn
With the loot
to do
quarter,
so.
maybe draw a card.
That is
Unless
it. That is
Lava
it.
Burst. Lava Burst has been used. Lava
There's
Shot.
Lightning Bolt number 2, if I'm not mistaken, but that is it. There needs to be a spell that deals damage. Anything else will not do it.
Yeah, and even then, he really needs the Alexstrasza.
No kill just yet, and it
He
needs to be
survived.
Alex. But even with Alexstrasza, I mean, let's be honest, it's a lot of damage coming in. 7/7's right there. I'm not sure how Alexstrasza saves you.
Yeah, you're right.
Ice Barrier gives you a bit of time, but it's not remotely
He's
enough.
still fighting though. He's drawing cards. There is a Flame Strike, but he cannot stop the weapon.
And
or even the
that-
7/7.
That's it. That will be it. Terrence will be going up 3-1 over Odemian. Frenchman is dead.
Well, that's
Well, I can see who
That's not
Nox
good.
was cheering for.
No, it's just really unfortunate because I thought that, Freeze Mage, it's got a rough matchup against Shaman. Maybe if it hadn't opened up like this.
yeah, but he did fight really well in those rounds, and the Freeze Mage versus Reno, he was super patient, and he
I like
did
that,
good
yeah.
plays.
It was a good play.
Well, as an American, I can be happy for Terrence. USA landed the free. Freedom wins again, gentlemen.
Okay.
Let
Was
that be a
Terrence-
lesson to you all.
Was Terrence undefeated in the Swiss portion? Was he like?
No,
Terrence,
was
no, he
9-2.
went
8-1.
8-1.
Yeah.
8-1,
Went
alright,
8-1.
alright.
Yeah, and Odemian had a really good run as well. But I mean, I think Terrence is one of the stories of the tournament. Once again, he's been playing for Hearthstone for years. He's been playing since the beta, so back in 2014.
Yeah, that looked-
It's been a long time since he's been playing Hearthstone and never really had a chance to truly break out. But now he's getting top 4, and that's already a guaranteed good chunk of change as well as some points. And he's playing phenomenally. Good job once again. Doesn't seem like he has too much weakness in his play at all. And can anyone take him down? I'm sure people have to figure out a good lineup. And the coolest thing, too, is that he's doing it with something that's a little bit different, right? We don't see people bring Reno Lock at all in this tournament. People, in fact, kind of said, well, if you're going to bring Warlock, you should bring Zoo. And yet he's bringing his own style of control decks, a good mixture of stuff, too, very balanced. And I think Terrence is joining us right now for a couple words. Just got to pull down that mic. Terrence, how you doing, man?
I'm doing great, dude.
Dude, top 4? I mean, did you expect to get this far when you entered the tournament?
No, I was like just happy with on the first day. I was like, I'll be happy if I get 4-1. I went 5-0, and then I was like, I'll be happy if I just top 16, and then I top 8. So it's just like, I'm happy with where I am already, but like I definitely want to go for the win for sure.
Gotcha. What do you think really separated your lineup from everyone else's, specifically to help you get this far? Because it seems like everyone has their different ideas of what's good in the metagame.
Yeah, I think the biggest strength was the arena lock. Like, I kind of expected a lot of people to be scared of the shaman, so I kind of built a 3-deck lineup, expecting people to just get rid of the shaman, and the arena lock has been like the main thing that's carried me.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I know people underestimated Arena Warlock. They were talking about all kinds of other control decks, like Control Paladin, for example. Why do you think Reno Lock works so well?
I think it's just because of its matchups. Like, its matchup against Patron, Priest, Control Warrior. Like, just it has really good matchups against the things that Miracle Rogue and Patron don't cover.
Yeah, I mean, it looks like it's really effective. It got you the 2 wins that you needed, and then, of course, Shaman versus Freeze Mage. I've seen this before. You guys have any questions for Terrence?
Yeah, what do you think about the bans? Because Odemian banned your warrior instead of your shaman. Do you think that was correct, or would you ban something else?
I expected him to ban my warrior because, like, Patron's good against Temple Warrior. It's good against Zoo. It's okay against Freeze Mage. Like, they can take you to Fatigue, or you just don't draw the double Armorsmith Whirlwinds. So I think that the warrior ban was definitely good. I actually had a lot of trouble with my bans because it was between banning the Freeze Mage and banning the Shaman. Like, his Shaman build's a little weird. It has, like, Finley and Mass Evolution and Thing from Below, but it also has, like, double Lava Burst, double Doomhammer. So it's not mid-range,
Oh,
but
it's like
it's
a
not
hybrid
aggro.
mixture.
So I wasn't sure if I wanted to let it through or not because it could have, like, more dead draws, but Shaman just has that draw where it just wins.
Yeah, exactly.
So I didn't want to deal
hand.
with that. And I'd have the Shaman for the Freeze Mage anyway, even though I wouldn't have the Warrior, so I felt comfortable with leaving the Freeze Mage up, expecting him to ban my Warrior.
Yeah, I don't think banning Shaman's usually bad. It's just like, can you find a better pick? And it's usually hard because sometimes it's a little bit to next level, and then they just pick the basic strategy. And like, well, I kind of countered myself. And you were even tweeting right before like the matches. You're saying like, oh, like I don't know, like what the ban is like kind of hard because everyone knows their deck list. Has that dynamic changed a lot for you now that you fully know what's in his decks and vice versa?
I think it changes more of what I think my opponent will ban, because a lot of people have been scared of either the rogue or the shaman. So like now that they know that it's patron, now that they know that it's Reno lock, like I have to be able to predict their ban more.
Or they'll get through, I guess.
Yeah.
So many mind games back and forth. All right. Well, your opponent, I mean, Odemian, did you know much about him going into this match at all?
No, I didn't really know much about him, but I did look him up last night while I was looking at the deck list and stuff.
Gotcha. Cool. Well, that's pretty much it for us. So it looks like Terrence is one of the first players in the top 4. Congratulations to him. In the meantime, we're not going to skip a beat at all. We're going to take a very short break, we promise, guys. And when we come back, we're going to have yet another quarterfinal here at the Hearthstone Grand Prix. Stay tuned.